There's a $127 billion mistake that countless businesses are making right now as we speak, and they might not even realize they're making it. It all comes down to the tools they choose to understand their own data. So let's break down how this happens and, more importantly, how you can avoid it. So let me tell you about Jennifer Walsh. She runs a really successful manufacturing company and made what she thought was a super smart investment, $87,000 for a top-of-the-line business intelligence platform. And the result, after a year and a half, it just sat there, almost completely unused. Turns out the software was way too complex, the dashboards didn't really help, and her team just went right back to what they knew, which was Excel. And look, Jennifer's story, it's not some rare exception. It is a tiny, tiny piece of a massive systemic problem. Every single year, small and medium-sized businesses waste a combined $127 billion on BI tools that just don't fit. I mean, just let that number sink in for a second. It's absolutely staggering. So you might be wondering, where does a number that huge, 127 billion, even come from? Well, it's about way more than just the initial price tag of the software. Okay, so at the very heart of this whole mess is a pretty shocking statistic. A massive 83% of BI projects in small and medium businesses simply fail. They don't deliver any value, they don't get used, and they don't help the business move forward. And listen, this isn't just a case of bad luck. It's a huge red flag that there's a fundamental disconnect happening here. So the cost. It's not just the sticker price on the software. You've got the consulting fees, the training fees, all for a tool that just collects dust. Then there's the countless hours of lost productivity when your team is struggling with something they just don't get. But the real kicker, the biggest hidden cost, it's all the opportunities you miss. We're talking an average of $2.4 million per company just gone because you're still making decisions based on gut feel instead of actual data. All right, so this begs the question, right? Why is this happening on such a massive scale? Well, it all comes down to something I call the enterprise tool trap, and it's where perfectly good intentions lead to incredibly expensive failures. Let me give you another quick story. This is David Chen, who owns a logistics company. He saw this sales demo for a super powerful enterprise-grade platform, and he was completely wowed. It was slick, it promised all this incredible analysis. The reality? Well, it was a complete and total nightmare. See, the tool was built for a whole team of data scientists who work with perfectly pristine data, two things his company absolutely did not have. So how does smart people like David get caught in this trap? They're told to make their decision by looking at something like this, an overwhelming checklist of features, comparing all the big-name players. And the logic seems simple enough. The tool with the most check marks must be the best one, right? Yeah, no, that's completely wrong. In fact, that exact thinking, that focus on features, that is the trap. That's what leads directly to that 83% failure rate we were just talking about. So let's break it down. Why do these big, fancy enterprise tools just fall flat for smaller businesses? It really boils down to 4 key reasons. First, the sheer number of features is just completely overwhelming for your team. Second, these tools assume your data is perfectly clean and organized, which, let's be honest, it never is. Third, the interfaces are built for data scientists, not for your sales manager or your marketing lead. And finally, number 4, a simple request like, "How did we do last month?" turns into a week-long, complicated technical project. Okay, so we've spent a lot of time on the problem, on the trap, and it's pretty bleak. But the good news is there is a clear way out of this. So let's walk through a really simple but powerful framework for making the right choice from the start. So the real question for you is, how do you sidestep this massive billion-dollar mistake? How do you find a tool that your team will not only use, but will actually love to use, and that delivers real value from day one? Well, the answer is to basically flip the whole evaluation process completely on its head. It's a simple framework called MATCH, and what it does is it shifts the focus away from what the tool can do and puts it squarely on what your business actually needs. Okay, so it all kicks off with M for maturity. This means before you even look at a single demo, you have to be brutally honest with yourself. How clean is our data, really? What are the actual tech skills of the people who will be using this thing? And maybe most importantly, is our company culture actually ready to start making decisions based on data? All right, next up, we've got A for actual use case. This means you take that feature checklist and you throw it out. I mean it. Instead, you sit down and you write the top 5, maybe 10, business questions that you are desperate to answer. Things like which of our marketing channels are actually giving us the best ROI, or what's our true customer lifetime value. The goal here is to find a tool that answers your specific questions, simply. Then we get to T for technical integration. And this one is huge, and honestly, it gets overlooked all the time. How easily can this new tool connect to the systems you're already using? Your CRM, your accounting software, the whole shebang. If it's going to require a 6-month custom-coded project just to get the data in, it is almost certainly the wrong choice. Next is C for cost analysis. And I'm not just talking about the price you see on the website. I'm talking about the total cost of ownership. Here's a great little rule of thumb, the rule of 3x. Whatever the annual license fee is, budget 3 times that amount for your first year. That'll cover all those hidden costs, like implementation, training, and integration. And it'll prevent any nasty budget surprises down the road. And finally, we have H for the human factor. And honestly, this might be the most important letter of them all, because a technically perfect tool that nobody on your team actually uses is completely and utterly worthless. The number one goal has to be user adoption. Is it intuitive? Does it make their lives easier? If the answer to those questions is no, then it's a tool that is destined to fail. Okay, a framework is awesome, but it's just theory, right? Let's make this super practical. How do you actually put this match framework into action? Well, you can go from selecting a tool to having it successfully up and running in just 90 days. Here's the action plan. It's pretty straightforward. We break it down into 3 30-day chunks. In the first 30 days, you use the match framework to really assess your needs and pick the right platform. The next 30 days are all about the technical setup and integration. And then in that final 30-day block, you roll it out to your team, you get their feedback, and you start to optimize those first crucial reports and dashboards. And when you follow a focused plan like this, well, the results are just a world away from that depressing 83% failure rate we talked about before. We're talking 85 to 90% user adoption, a positive return on your investment in under a year, a huge 50 to 75% drop in time spent on manual reporting. This is what success actually looks like. So at the end of the day, the key to really succeeding with BI, it's not what you think. It's not about buying the tool with the most features or the biggest brand name or the one with the highest price tag. The real key is something much more fundamental. Let's put it side by side because this is the whole thing in a nutshell. On one hand, you have the trap. You focus on feature lists, which always leads to complexity, which in turn leads to low adoption and failure. But on the other hand, you have the framework. You focus on your actual use cases. You prioritize simplicity above all else, and that is what drives high adoption and success. It's a complete shift in mindset. So I want to leave you with one last question, one that I really want you to think about for your own business. When you look at your BI software, or the one you're thinking about buying, is it truly an investment that's going to deliver a return, or is it just another expense on the books? The answer to that question makes all the difference in the world.